And now, it's 10 a.m.
Let's just get down to it.
And it's time for your sports fix.
Strap yourselves in, folks.
From two guys who have covered the teams you're passionate about for years.
We are professionals.
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5 The KSL Sports Zone.
It's been a while since I could hold my head up high, and it's been a while since I first saw you, and it's been a while since I could stand.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Jake Scott, Ben Anderson.
There's that voice.
Has been a while.
There's that voice we've been missing.
Got to get back in the groove. Have I missed anything?
Every time you go out of town, the world changes. I go out of town, nothing happens. But so I appreciate you've chosen some very good times to go out of town.
So you had something to talk about.
Every day there was something new to talk about. It felt like we went from the NHL draft. Let's see, you left Wednesday?
Day one of the NBA draft.
So you left Wednesday night. Thursday was day two, so that was super easy. Recap day one, got ready for day two. Friday, recap day two, previewed the NHL draft. Monday, came back, talked about the NHL draft. Tuesday, I think Blake Anderson was fired. Jerry Bovee was let go. That story continues to evolve. Wednesday, more fallout from that, and rumors surface out of nowhere. Oh, of course, during this whole time, NBA free agency opens.
Yeah, right.
Rumors abound that the Jazz are going to trade Lauri Markkanen. Doesn't actually happen. And then Friday, just kind of a recap of the week. So, yeah, it was a good week. It was an easy week to talk sports.
Light work.
Well, I just sat there. Sat there on the beach, not being dialed in. So I appreciate that you got a chance, or that you got a lot of news and you were able to get by. Because sometimes I tell people this all the time about this job is kind of the hard part is like you can't just put your email notification on. Well, I'll be back in a week and a half. And, obviously can't grab a temp. There are only so many people out there that you really can plug in. So it's always appreciated when I always say this, I appreciate your help getting out of town because that really is what it is. People are helping out of the goodness of your heart so you can have a great vacation. So appreciate you, Ben. Glad we had a bunch of news. Thank you to Christian, who I'm sure everybody jumped on board to help out.
Mitch Harper. Yeah.
Yeah. All the people. So there you go. We've got Big 12 Media Day starting tomorrow. You and I are both getting on the aeroplane to go down to Las Vegas and do our thing tomorrow and Wednesday.
I'm excited.
Have you looked at the weather down there?
118 degrees? Yeah, it's going to be insane.
Now, will you stay committed to your pants routine?
Yes.
Ben does not wear shorts. He refuses to do it. I don't know if he has a bad tattoo on his leg and he just doesn't want to show it.
I am not Philadelphia Congressman John Fetterman. I don't wear shorts out of the house. I wear pants.
That's not a thing.
I'm more the Mitt Romney type. You never seen Mitt Romney wearing pants, have you? Or shorts? He's exclusively a pants man.
So in 118-degree weather, where everybody else is going to be wearing shorts, you're going to be committed to the pants.
I don't know if I've ever seen Kyle Whittingham wear pants. He's always a shorts guy, right?
Christian,
he's got those calves.
Do you have any theories on why Ben has this peccadillo?
No, I think the bad tattoo thing could be plausible. I mean, he hasn't denied that yet. So
he really hasn't denied that. That's a terrific point.
I'll say I'm the exact opposite. I mean, I hardly ever wear pants.
I wear shorts all the time.
I almost exclusively wear shorts.
Got new shorts for my birthday.
There you go.
Right.
I just like pants.
Exclusively went shopping for shorts.
Okay.
On my vacation.
I mean, I own pairs of shorts.
You do?
Yeah, I was up at the lake over the weekend. I wore shorts the entire weekend. I wear swim trunks, but when I go to work...
But not on the golf course?
No. It's business.
That makes no sense. And what, do you think your calves are going to somehow affect your business?
Yes.
That's the answer? It's a calf tattoo. You heard it here first. That's exactly what it is. Is it like one of those spider web ones?
It's a jail tattoo.
Is it?
Yeah. There's a jail tattoo controversy this weekend, right, at the RSL game.
Really?
Oh, did you not miss that? Did you miss that?
I did miss that.
Okay.
Wait, fill me in real quick. I know we got other stuff to jump into.
A guy very prominently was displaying white supremacist tattoos and was asked to leave. And somebody else came out online and said, hey, I know this guy. He got these to survive in jail. He's trying to get them removed, etc.
So
and
what's
it was like, oh, great. He's trying to get them removed. And the question was like, but you couldn't wear a hat?
But
you still had to display them all? Like,
define predominantly.
What do you mean?
I mean,
So it was on the side of his head, and he kept the sides of his head shaved.
Now, he says he had to keep them shaved. The rumor is you have to keep them shaved so you can get the laser hair removal or the laser removal of the tattoo, and you got to keep the hair short.
But he wasn't like getting down front row for the camera and pointing at it predominantly.
I'll show you the photo. I'll let you be
Well,
the
it's
judge.
just some random photo. He was just standing out there.
It's a very clear photo. He might have been pretty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pretty close to the front of the seats.
Yeah. All right. But if you're like standing there wearing a sandwich board, calling attention to your head, that's, pretty predominantly.
Okay. I've got no opinions on the matter.
He could have worn a hat, though. Could have just thrown on a bucket cap and.
If it's something you're ashamed of, probably. I wear pants to hide my my tattoos.
Whatever's
that I'm
going
ashamed
on
of.
down there.
Yeah. Tasmanian Devil.
Mickey the Mouse.
Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, that was Tag, right?
Do we have Fred?
He had Fred Flintstone on his calf.
Yeah.
Did you go full Tag?
In honor of Greg Ostertag, I have Greg Ostertag wearing Fred Flintstone's, what is that? A schmock? What's the thing he has? Smock? What is he wearing?
A muumuu?
Yeah, his muumuu. Whatever Fred wears. I have that tattoo on my calf, and I cover it up.
I always thought that was a pretty apt tattoo for Tag. He had big Fred Flintstone energy.
He does, yeah.
You not want to know how I felt old today? By the way, speaking of Tag, like throwing back to the 90s, like how many younger people are listening to the show that are like, I've heard the legend of Greg Ostertag. Did you hear Britton Covey talk about he got Todd Watkins's gloves when he was 7?
Yeah.
I covered Todd Watkins at BYU. That feels like yesterday. Todd Watkins, by the way, has a rad family. We were doing a post-game show from a restaurant down there, and his whole family came over. We're just hanging out, and they were the coolest people. But that seems like that happened last month. Britton Covey was 7?
Yep.
He plays for the Eagles.
I have to remind myself a lot.
Not the Skyline Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles.
Where is he now? Is he still there? Did he not go anywhere else this offseason? Can't remember. That actually reminds me of kind of an interesting talking point. Not that we need to jump into Lowry Markkanen necessarily, but the number of people online I see freaking out about whether the Jazz should keep Lowry or trade Lowry, and obviously it's been a big conversation this weekend. I forget that not everybody has seen this team rebuild, tear itself down, rebuild. I mean, how many times has it happened in your life? You were covering...
In my life or in my career?
In your career. You were covering 04, right? Or at least you were kind of around.
Yep, I was around I was around for the last season of John and Carl.
Okay. So you saw
like the
Andre
very
Karolinko,
end. Yeah.
Matt Harpring.
Oh, I saw that
rebuild.
From start to finish. Yeah.
Lasted really a year. Like the 03-04, then it was awful 05. They signed Boozer, and everyone was excited, and they were terrible.
Kevin O'Connor never got enough credit for that. They went from one generation to the next and ended up competing like a year, like you're pointing out a year later.
But it was a rebuild, right? That was one rebuild.
It just didn't last very long.
And then 08, they really kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? They draft Aaron in, 06?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And then by, 2011, it was falling apart again,
And they had to rebuild it with Quinn Snyder.
Rebuild it with Quinn Snyder.
4 years till they made the playoffs again. 4. 4 years until they made the playoffs again.
You get Rudy and Donovan. I mean, that was the rebuild with Gordon.
Yeah.
You lose Gordon Hayward. You rebuild instantly on the spot with Donovan Mitchell, getting very lucky drafting him, 14th overall. And then he leaves. And now you're starting again. It's just like, I do think a lot of people, especially online, which trends a little bit younger, not everybody, but certainly trends a little younger, maybe don't realize this is the natural rhythm of basketball teams. And this too will end.
All right, let's talk to the young people. What's the meme with Kermit the Frog sipping the tea?
Sipping the tea?
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about?
Uh-huh.
That's the Jazz.
Yeah.
They're going to sit there and sip the tea. the price tag for Lowry, if that's what they're hell-bent on doing, probably going to be higher at the trade deadline. They don't have to do anything. We've talked about this forever. That's the position of strength that they're in. They don't have to do anything. The Lakers have to do something.
Yeah.
Dallas actually had to do something, and we can jump into that, adding Klay Thompson, whether or not that was going to work or not going to work. But they have to push it over the top to keep Luka. So they have to do something. The Jazz don't have to do anything. They can just sit there. All right, if you're not going to meet our price demand about Lowry market. Think about this, Ben. They played the we don't have to do anything card when they had to do something in trade Rudy and Donovan. Remember how slow they played both of those? And they had to do something that offseason.
Yep. And still, you're right.
Especially after they traded Rudy. They had to trade both. And they still played the we don't have to do anything card.
Right.
Now they really don't have to do anything. They could shelve Lowry. They could say, go ahead and get that knee cleaned out, take a year off, if they really wanted to. So I don't know. I saw a little bit of that fodder as I was getting caught back up with the world, and that's one I just don't get. Well, they're not a move away from being title contenders, so settle down. Klay Thompson on the roster wasn't going to push him over the top. And whether or not Lowry fits in the window or not doesn't matter at this second in time, right?
And I don't think they are so talented that they can't compete for a top 5 pick in next year's draft if that's what they're wanting. Because how many teams are clearly worse than the Jazz next year right now at this point, even if you were to hold on to Lowry, Markkanen, and Colin Sexton? It's not a lot.
Like 3?
Washington's bad. Maybe. Pistons might. You got Cade Cunningham. You signed Tobias Harris, who's not like a great player, but he makes them better than they were last year. You sign Malik Beasley, who can shoot. Like, Simone Fontecchio's back. They could very easily be better than the Jazz next year.
Well, Monty Williams was obviously the problem.
He was the problem. Must have been the problem.
Must have been.
Like, if you told me that Portland was better than the Jazz next year, I'd listen.
Nah, I don't know if I'm buying that one. Portland's at the bottom of the basement and then blew a top 5 pick last year, so that might be in Kings territory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they could be.
Where they're going to be scraping themselves off the bottom for a while.
There's just not a lot of teams, though. Like, maybe Charlotte?
Well, the Jazz are apparently going to go with 6 sophomores or younger on the roster.
Yeah, right.
Which, again, for the second year in a row, I would never have predicted. And I'm curious, Ben, and I don't know if we want to, this is kind of scattered, but I'd be curious to get your evaluation of the draft because, once again, according to the Jazz, apparently they got the best 3 players in the draft.
There is always this funny thing, and I do all my prep, and I like the 3 guys that they drafted. I totally understand why Isaiah Collier was on the board at 29. A little more surprised that Kyle Filipowski fell to the second round, but if you told me Kyle Filipowski's not an NBA player in 5 years, I'd listen to you.
Now, he has a bizarre controversy.
Now, that was a weird...
he married his babysitter?
Day as well.
And cut off his family?
I'm not totally sure what happened there.
But a dirty player.
A dirty player,
Which they need.
A tripper, yeah.
Yeah, right.
A notorious Duke
Which
tripper.
they need. They should bring the clinic back to give him a clinic.
And we will see, we get to see him tonight. I'm excited for that aspect of it. Be in Vegas, but I'll be tuning in to watch the Jazz Summer League, and I'm excited to see what the players look like. There is also this funny thing of being like, yeah, they're so smart. They let everyone who fell to them, they drafted them. They didn't trade up. It's like, sometimes there's a reason guys fall, If they deserved to be the number 3 overall pick, they would have got number 3 overall. Like, there's a reason teams passed on these guys. I think that is always important. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't Carlos Boozerses and Paul Millsapses that fall. Those
the James
guys,
Butlerses?
Yeah, the Jimmy Butlerses. Those guys will slip. The Himmies, they slip. And you don't bet that all your guys are them, are those types of players. But you hope, there's something to Isaiah Collier's game that unlocks in the NBA that wasn't there in college.
Kind of like Bronny. Hope it just blossoms.
Had an interesting weekend.
I can't believe I missed all of that. I was right about everything, and I wasn't even around to get the credit.
I legitimately forgot the Sacramento Summer League started before the Salt Lake Summer League and tuned in and saw his, 2 of 9, 4-point performance.
Throwing up bricks.
Oh.
But what did you expect? He's not an NBA player.
And then didn't play day 2.
You can't have 2 bad showings in a row.
Could crush the young man.
Yeah, rather just not play him.
So, no, I'm excited to see the players tonight. I'm excited to see how many times we see all of these guys on the floor in the same time in the Summer League. Because as we've talked about, it's a little bit of a dream team, this Jazz Summer League roster.
Oh, I think they should dominate. If we want to continue our scattered NBA Jazz segment, I think those players should go out and dominate. Absolutely. And if they don't, I think that does raise a red flag. Now, you know me, I'm not buying into any sort of underreaction or overreaction with Summer League because I always find that ridiculous. But even Trey Lyles in his second year of Summer League
was too good to be there.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you're not, that might be a concern, but by no means ends your career.
I saw a comment this morning, and I forget, I didn't see who tweeted it, but it was like, why put Walker out there tonight? He's going up against Zach Edey. It's like, this is a lose-lose for Walker Kessler. Either he beats Zach Edey, and he should have, or he loses to Zach Edey, and it's a bad look. It's like, well, Walker needs to get better.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I'm glad that was your next sentence because this isn't politics where you're like, that's the problem with Bronny.
Yeah, right.
We don't want to put two bad nights at tape. If you're a Jazz fan, you should hope Walker Kessler has a bad night tonight. And then they could say, hey, you need to get better. And then he's got to go out and play the next night.
Or hope he dominates and he's getting better.
Either way, there's some good to be had there.
In fact, I might argue it's a win-win.
It's absolutely a win-win. But what you don't want to do is hide him because you're scared of a challenge from a stiff rookie.
Yeah, if he's bad, it's a bad sign for Walker, and he's got to get better. He needs to be better than Zach Edey at this point in his career.
He needs to be at Summer League. I remember when Dante Exum got sent to the Summer League for the 6th time in a row. And it was somewhat controversial, he's still going to Summer League? It's like, yeah, he needs to go to Summer League.
Not good enough yet.
Remember, Walker was lauded in his first season. Second season, everybody, it's taking a step back, blah, blah, blah. That whole narrative was really hard on him.
Yep.
I've heard, these are third, fourth hand, whatever, but stories that it was really hard on him that he struggled. And so he does need to go back to basics a little bit. He was humbled. You got to go back to Summer League. You got to work on the thing. You're not there yet.
And with the exception of a few names, notably names whose brother or dad plays on the roster, the NBA is a meritocracy. You have to earn your keep. Yeah. And if you're not good enough to be there, you don't get to be there. You don't just get to be there because of, again, unless your last name's Antetokounmpo or James, you don't just get a spot in the NBA for free. You have to earn your keep. You have to earn playing time. And playing in Summer League is part of that process. Better players than you have played in Summer League in year 2.
Yeah, don't feel bad for Walker Kessler. Feel bad for Bronny James, who's going to be eating dunks for his short career as a professional basketball player. The whole G League is going to line up to dunk on him.
Hey, he got a real contract. He's not even a two-way player. He got a full guaranteed deal.
How'd he do that, Ben?
He got a full guaranteed deal. Now, of course, that doesn't mean he can't go and play for the South Bay Lakers, but...
Oh, no, they'll send him down.
Yeah.
Well, he'll eat dunks in the NBA. Even sitting down, they'll stand him up in timeouts and push him out there to dunk on him.
So I'm excited to see it. Dalton Knecht didn't play well either. Dalton Knecht's 23 and was the SEC Player of the Year and had a very bad weekend as well for the Lakers. So, I don't expect Cody Williams to step out and dominate day one. It's hard.
Oh, yeah, it's totally hard, especially day one.
Yeah, it's a jump. It's a significant jump over what he did at Colorado.
Especially especially for people who aren't prepared to be there. 2 for 9, is that what you said?
If something like that. Yeah, it wasn't good. I'd have to pull up the box score.
Yeah.
I was, like you, I was on the beach checking box scores, but well, you probably weren't checking box scores. You're less of a sicko than I am.
I didn't get the, Ben, I kept reaching my phone up and it just didn't get the signal. All right, stay tuned. We'll get top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
It's time to break down the biggest stories of the day. This is the top 3 stories of the day on KSLSports.com. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, want to remind you to nominate the youth sports volunteer for the Hercules Hero of the Week. Submit your nomination at KSLSports.com/contest and listen every Thursday afternoon to JJ and Alex for the winner. Help us celebrate the efforts of those volunteers making an impact with the Hercules Hero of the Week, sponsored by Hercules Credit Union. Time for the top 3 stories of the day at KSLSports.com, brought to you by J. Brooks Jewelers. 2 locations to serve you, one on Winchester Street across from Fashion Place Mall, the other at Traverse Mountain in Lehigh. I can't believe they made a thing out of axe throwing. You ever been axe throwing?
I have not. Have you?
Yeah, several times, and it is good fun. Seems like a little dangerous, But what are you going to do? They'll make a professional whatever out of anything, and the mouse is going to air it.
Today is the ESPN the Ocho Day, right?
Is that what it is?
I think they're doing the Ocho Day today.
All right, Christian, where are we starting?
Number 1, Salt Lake City Summer League starts tonight.
Are you excited, Ben?
I will be watching from my hotel room in Las Vegas. So, yeah, I'll be doing some Big 12 Media Day prep and sitting, throwing the game on ESPN. We'll have the K-Jazz broadcast on. But apparently it's the same announcers, so we'll have Bowler out there still doing the ESPN call.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You're not going to try and watch it from some other establishment down in Las Vegas?
I don't think so, no. I would prefer not to.
No, Ben, why is your laptop covered in glitter?
I am excited to see. I always have it in my hotel room. I never go anywhere without glitter. I'm excited to see Zach Edey tonight. I'm very curious about it. I suspect he will play well in Summer League. I'm obviously want to see what the Jazz 3 young players look like. I should say the newest 3 young players. The entire Jazz roster, even their main roster, is young players. But excited to see Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, and Kyle Filipowski. Though I have not seen Kyle Filipowski sign his contract yet, which I guess technically if they wanted to hold him out, meaning his agent said until he gets a guaranteed deal, we're not playing basketball, which makes total sense. I guess there's a chance we wouldn't see him, but that's pure speculation on my part.
And he's, I guess he could go overseas, right? He couldn't go back to college.
Can't go back to college, but yeah, doesn't have to.
You're kind of slotted to make what you make, right? They want the guarantee. That's probably the idea.
And every second-round pick gets guaranteed money now. It's not just Bronny. But, it's depending. Is it 4 years guaranteed? Is it 3 years guaranteed? Is it $9 million? Is it $8 million? All those things are negotiable in the second round. So
I'll tell you what. I'd be like, you got a lot of gall as a second-round pick to try and twist my arm. Is this really you want to get off on this foot, huh?
Especially because the Jazz have $36 million in available salary cap space. You know what I mean? It's like, who cares?
There's opportunities to be had on this team. Like, you go to a different team, you could be cut tomorrow. I don't get that. I mean, Bronny has that kind of leverage, but all right. Well, I hope we see him.
Me too.
And yeah, I'm with you. I can't wait to see Cody Williams. I mean, that's always the fun part about Summer League, right? Is the first look at these players. And I can think back to all the Summer Leagues. I'm sure you can too, when we get a first look on all these notable players. And then you can always look back in the rearview mirror and go, oh, I saw him win. I saw Britton Johnson dunk right in Braun's face.
Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum up at the Huntsman Center. Just, there's some memorable moments that were like, oh, these two guys have something. And they did. That was very accurate. Now, not every good player in G League, in a Summer League ends up being a star, but sometimes it is. Sometimes it is a preview of who they're going to be. But yeah, Zach Edey's going to be fun tonight. Isaiah Collier, we'll see. We'll see how he looks. I get the other thing you realize is these guys are who they were in college, for the most part. A lot of these guys are the same types of players. So do I expect Isaiah Collier to all of a sudden be able to shoot threes? Not really. Do I expect him to be turnover prone? I do. Is he going to get out of control at times? Yes. Is he going to make some awesome passes, though? Really run the show? Yeah. I mean, all those things are going to be true.
Well, and they make those types of players who are guaranteed to make the team do things that they're not comfortable with.
Right. Try some stuff out.
And I just hope the referees are good. That's what I always cheer for in Summer League is let's hope. Because it's kind of a tryout for referees, too.
Yep.
So let's hope they're on their game. Because since you can't foul out of the game, sometimes things get a little out of hand.
Yeah. And that's one thing I would keep an eye on with Kyle Filipowski. That was one of his issues in college. He was a little foul prone.
Yeah, but I got to think his immediate role on the team is like the Doak role, right? Like you've got 5 fouls.
Use them all.
Use them quick, and make them count.
Yeah, do you get 10 in Summer League, or is there just no limit?
No, there's just no limit.
Over 10, it's like a technical foul or something?
No, it's just go out there and make it happen. Oh, well, maybe it could be a technical foul, but you can't foul out of the game.
There's like a really high number, though, even before you get to the threshold where they change the damages from your foul.
But usually in Summer League, also, you don't want anybody to get hurt, so the go out and crack some skulls strategy.
Which is why that would be my strategy. This guy's really giving it his all in Summer League.
Zig when everybody else is zagging.
Yeah, he took everybody out. He's not going to have any friends in the NBA.
Slid under a guy on his own team.
Wow. diving at knees.
He's got what it takes, this Anderson kid.
Anderson's got it.
He's got
38 years old, fighting for his life.
He's got to do what he's got to do. He's a survivor.
So we will see. And then the early game before that, Oklahoma City, and Dylan Jones from Weber State going to make his NBA debut
Good
tonight
for
as
him.
well. That's awesome. First round pick. Yeah, got traded up, and 5 second-round picks to move up and get him.
All right, what's next?
Number 2, Jerry Bovee released a statement.
One of the big stories while I was gone.
Yeah, arguably. I mean, Blake Anderson lost his job over the week. I mean, it was insane to see that news come out. Pete Thamel reported it. Again, I think it was probably Tuesday morning that he was put on administrative leave. And then all of a sudden it was he's not expected to return. And then 2 other people, including Jerry Bovee, who's been a long time face in the state of Utah when it comes to athletics, also tied up in it. And then he released his report over the weekend saying, we still don't know what the original charge was of what the background is of this story. But he says we did everything right. We ran everything up the flagpole the way it's supposed to. We followed orders. And clearly the administrators at Utah State feel differently.
Well, Jerry pushing back should tell you something, and I suppose good for him if he's proven right. I'll tell you, I've known Jerry for over 20 years, going back to my high school experience. And he always seemed like a by-the-book kind of dude, if that makes any sense. And again, I have no idea, behind closed doors, but his reputation at Weber State was pretty impeccable. And what he's done for Utah State, from what I can see, is pretty good. But he always struck me as a pretty, not really going to cut any corners type of dude. So, and this would be a big corner to cut. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's going to be, lawsuits and have this proven out. But I think sometimes at Utah State, the best interest of the student has not always been what has been served up there.
Okay.
And so I really hope that the motivations of whatever prevails are the people that had the students in mind. Does that make any sense? Because they have not had the students' best interest at heart in recent history, at all.
Yep.
And so I'm hoping this situation, it proves out that the ones that didn't have the students' best interest at heart are the ones who pay the consequence, and the ones that did are the ones that prevail.
Again,
so that's really my stance on the whole thing.
Not knowing the original incident here that caused this, need to get Title IX involved and, run it up the flagpole and see how far it needs to go. I just have a hard time imagining any football player is worth your job. You know what I mean? I just think about it with whether it was Blake Anderson or Jerry Bovee or whatever the accusations are here, that you would cover up this stuff for any one player, especially at Utah State. I mean, it's never worth it ever. Like you said, the health of the person who was apparently put in danger or whatever, the victim here, needs to be made the priority.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine any one football player being worth I'll risk my job if this goes bad. This is definitely worth it.
Well, the one guy was playing for the Falcons, the linebacker, Green.
Yeah.
What was his first name? Apologies. But and all the stuff came out about him at Utah State, which was
ugly.
Awful.
Yep.
Awful. And could not have been handled worse. So I would have hoped that they learned their lesson from that, and maybe they did, and this is about something else. I don't know. But I'm sorry to see it happen, and I wish regular students, student athletes, I wish their interest would be best represented and not necessarily success on the football team.
Yep. Totally with you. It's going out ugly. Regardless. Yeah. This is getting ugly.
I don't hate that I missed that one. I guess it's ongoing, and we'll see. But I think Jerry being pretty outward about, releasing a statement and going after it full bore probably is what I would do if I were being wronged.
Yep.
All right. What's next?
Number 3, recapping NBA free agency's biggest moves.
Lots of players moving, Ben, and apologies if we're just catching up on this, but it's very intriguing to me to come in and weigh in on some of this stuff. Has there been any game-changing move in your mind that has happened so far?
I mean, I would say Paul George going to the 76ers probably makes them the 3rd best team in the East, which they may have already been regardless, because you have Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, who are 2 very good players, and maybe that was enough. I think it certainly places them above Cleveland, which, again, I think they already were. Maybe it pushes them above Milwaukee. Obviously, the Celtics are the best team. Knicks are pretty loaded, though they did lose Isaiah Hartenstein. We'll see how he works out in Oklahoma City. And then there was the interesting moves over the weekend, really finalized yesterday. Harrison Barnes going to San Antonio to clear room for DeMar DeRozan to go to Sacramento. And those two aren't needle movers necessarily. I'm really curious what it does do is it kind of takes them not out of the race for Lowry Markkanen. If either team wanted to do it, they could still probably do it. But that's fills some gaps for them that maybe they were hoping Lowry would fill.
What do you think about Clay to Dallas?
I think anytime you add a shooter with that type of gravity, it will help somebody like Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. I don't think Clay, what he does specifically, him makes them a lot better.
Ooh, this is weird. I'm kind of up on this move with Dallas. Answer me this question though: is Clay broken? I mean, can he make it up and down the floor?
Yeah, the real question is who is playing defense on that team in the fourth quarter?
Okay, that's an issue. Yeah, I agree.
Luke is not.
I still agree with you there. Even though Clay in his heyday was a fine
great
defender.
defensive player, he's no
but
longer.
But that's why I guess I'm asking if he's broken, because if there was ever a player that was happy not having the ball, actually, it's Klay Thompson. If you've ever looked into his stats where it's like dribbles per game, it's like 1. He really does just catch and shoot.
Yep.
And catch and dash to the basket, and that's his thing. And he's been happy doing that thing and watching Steph and Kevin Durant play basketball for a long time. He's really fine with it. And that's what Dallas needs, is somebody who's just fine with it, and I'm going to splash 20 with the 10 shots that you give me and go about my day. Now, the defensive problems, I agree. But as far as offensive fit goes, I actually kind of like it. But
because you didn't need to guard Derrick Jones Jr. You just didn't need to. Even if he hit an okay percentage, which he didn't, you just never needed to guard him.
And it still makes them huge and long, which is a good thing. But again, if he can't move, that kind of negates that, right? So I'm actually kind of intrigued. I think if it works, I think it does make Dallas better. Because you can't add, God, what would be a terrible ad? I mean, DeMar DeRozan would have been an awful ad for Dallas.
Doesn't do anything.
No, it doesn't. It's just he's going to get upset because he's going to stand there and watch them play. Clay doesn't have that problem. So I thought that was a pretty interesting addition. I think Paul George makes Philly better. He's been the healthy one with the Clippers. I mean, he hasn't played all the games per se, but he hasn't been the injured one with the Clippers. That's been Kawhi Leonard.
Sure.
So if he stays healthy, I think he makes them way better.
Yeah, he does. I mean, he's a great player. He's a top 10 player in the NBA still.
And he can handle the ball, which they need somebody to do.
Yeah, makes life easier on both Joel and Tyrese and opens the floor. I mean, you can give him the ball anywhere, which I really like.
Right. So I like that. I don't think DeRozan does anything for Sacramento.
No, I don't understand a team that is so good in the mid-range adding DeMar DeRozan. It's like, well, that wasn't your problem because that's all DeMar DeRozan does, right? He scores in the mid-range. That's what he's best at. Well, that's where Sabonis lives. And late in games, that's actually where De'Aaron Fox is really good. At least 2 years ago, he was the best clutch player in the NBA because he kept getting that little 15-foot floater, that little runner, and he'd score on you every time. Now you just add another body there, and they need more. They need more three-point shooting, and maybe that's on Sabonis now to step out.
I bet they're betting on him being good at the dribble handoff, which he probably is.
Probably will be, yeah.
But I hear you on the overlap with Fox, and he's 1,000 years old. Like, how's that going to work?
And you gave him 3 years and $75 million.
The end of that's going to suck.
Yeah. I honestly think Golden State, Sacramento, San Antonio probably all kick the tires on Lowry.
Golden State, really?
That was the big rumor last week while you were gone, was like Golden State's the front runner to make this trade. And it never made total sense to me, but you could throw Kuminga and Brandon Podziemski and you could make an interesting package. But they all kind of pivoted. They all moved on to something different. And I honestly wonder if they said, hey, Jazz, here's our best offer. And Danny and Justin just said, oh, yeah, you're not close. So you're not close, so you don't need to keep waiting. You're not close.
Because the Klay Thompson thing, they had to let him go. They had to.
Yeah, they blew it. Yeah.
They could not afford to re-sign him. I don't know how they would trade for a max guy in a sense.
Yeah, it was going to be, and they're weirdly under the cap. They would have been way over the cap had they signed.
Right. So
Klay.
They have flexibility for the first time in years, and then you just spend that the next day going right back into the whatever. I mean, what was their tax bill last year?
Yeah, like $200
$500 million or whatever it was.
Crazy, yeah.
I think it doubled because it was 200 the year before. I mean, those penalties are really punitive.
So I think they were probably happy to be out of that a little bit, and of course would have tried to keep Steph happy and give themselves another chance to be somewhat relevant in the West by adding Lowry. But again, my ultimate takeaway in the whole conversation last week was none of these teams are Lowry Markkanen away.
No.
Oklahoma City, maybe. If you want to say OKC would go out and get him, and that would really push them over the top, great. But they were already the best team in the West last year. At least they had the best record.
Love him in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, that would make perfect sense.
That'd be what I'd be chasing
if
I were the Jazz. But who knows? I mean, Sam Presti has been brilliant in one hand and a buffoon in the other. So which one are you going to get?
Yep.
Trading James Harden over $5 million. And how about the Clippers picking bloated James Harden over Paul George?
Yep.
I would not have done that.
Yep. Playing hardball with Paul George on his negotiations, apparently.
And just laying it out for
Well,
Steve Ballmer.
We'll
You're
lose you for nothing.
You're the guy dancing like an idiot in the 90s. Worth $1 zillion.
The tax bill truly does not matter to you. You're the richest owner in the NBA.
Well,
it does not matter to you at all.
You're opening a new building that nobody believes in.
And now you're replacing Paul George with Derek Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn.
Oh, I love Chris Dunn.
Yeah. He's not quite Paul George.
They're going to figure out real quick, like, the other team doesn't guard him.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Kawhi's life is really hard.
Wait,
Derek Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn, they don't guard them at all? Nobody guards either of those players?
Okay.
Kawhi's got a triple team every trip
time.
down the floor. He's got a triple team.
And his leg is already barely hanging on. Meanwhile, James Harden is trying to bloat himself up the court.
Step back.
I love the NBA.
Yeah, me too, man.
It is the best.
It was a fun week.
All right. Stay tuned. We'll have more next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Our 50 segment brought to you by our friends at Peach Doors and Windows. Amazing home transformations begin with Peach Doors and Windows, where 5-star reviews are the norm. Call them today for your free in-home estimate, 801-566-1255. Peach Doors and Windows. Also, Win Ticket Wednesday on the station. Win big every week on the KSL Sports Zone. This week on Win Ticket Wednesday, you can win a pair of tickets to go see Post Malone at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on September the 8th. Listen to the station all day on Wednesday, July 10th, for your chance to win. Is he still the resident here?
I doubt he had to sell his house, so.
I thought he did sell his house.
Oh,
I
he
thought
did?
that was a thing.
Oh, okay.
But then somebody said he's just moving around or something. I don't know.
Okay.
You're supposed to know these things.
Transient. I don't know.
What do you mean you don't know?
I've seen him at one Jazz game.
You're going to like the mayor's Christmas party. You're like dialed into all this stuff.
You think Post Malone's getting an invite to the mayor's Christmas party?
I'm sure the mayor would die to have Post Malone at her Christmas party.
If I'm there?
I'm sure the mayor
City or county?
just sends an email every year.
Oh, are we talking the city mayor or the county mayor?
Which one did you go to? Both?
Both.
Wow.
I had to leave one early.
Aaron and Jenny?
Yeah, I had to leave
Where are
one
you
early.
getting all this stuff?
Post Malone.
No, what are you dialed into the Utah Democratic Party? Some fierce or something?
All the parties.
He tweeted he's not leaving Utah. He was just buying some more land.
Oh, I see. Okay.
For all those that care. I know there are a lot of people that are like,
Hey, we have very
he's our
few
biggest celebrity here. Yeah.
celebrity residents, so we care about them all. I mean, what's his name?
Phil Dunphy.
Well, he lives here, but I was, what's his name? Lived in Provo, the guy from Arnold from Different Strokes.
Gary Coleman.
Gary Coleman
Rest his soul.
lived up here for a while. Wilford Brimley, of course.
Will Brim. Yep.
I mean, Park City's got a bunch of them, right?
Thurl Bailey.
Oh, Big T. Big T is the star.
Yep.
Man, I had Big T sign a hat for somebody that lives in Maryland where Big T is actually from. And because friend connection, they want to do something nice for one of the educators. Apparently just made his life because Big T is not only a big deal here, but a huge deal back there.
He's probably a bigger deal at NC State than he is
might
here.
be. Yeah, he might be.
I mean, legendary. Think of the reverence that, BYU fans, now obviously he's come back around, but speak about Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
Just because he got them to the Elite Eight. Or Jimmer, just because of what Jimmer did being named National Player of the Year. How Utah fans feel about Keith Van Horn and certainly Andre Miller and Alex Jensen and Doliak. Like, they didn't win. With all due respect, they didn't win the title. And Thurl did.
Yep.
And the most unbelievable title. It was awesome.
So I just got back from North Carolina. Can I tell you a funny observation? I've been going back there my entire life. Used to live in North Carolina at one point, but my point is going to the Outer Banks my entire life. I have maybe seen one or two NC State flags ever. And I mean ever. I saw at least a dozen on the first day alone.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, NC State gets good for once. And everybody's like, okay, I can fly my flag finally. I've been waiting since Thurl for an opportunity to fly my NC State flag. And we've been so bad for so long at all the things that they just haven't been able to do it.
DJ Burns has a big run and becomes a fan favorite.
I was excited for him.
Yep.
All the flags were a crisp red, not sun-worn at all.
Yep. Still have the crease when you pull them out of the plastic bag you got on Amazon.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing. They're eclipsed by two pretty, substantial universities. Like, living in the shadow of Duke and North Carolina has got to be rough, right? And, the one time you're good at basketball, nonetheless. You're putting that flag out, Ben.
Wake Forest is right there, too. It's not like, there's just, as you know, basketball-rich area of the country, and NC State generally is not the person knocking on that door.
That's why that run with Jimmy V was so special.
Yep.
It wasn't Duke or North Carolina. In fact, it was on the heels of Michael Jordan?
Yes, it was post-Michael.
Yeah, it was like the next year.
Must have been the next year. Because they beat Mike. Yeah, Michael won it the last year as a freshman.
And then
goes back to college as a sophomore, right? And they beat them on the run to the championship.
Yeah. Big T is a big deal back there.
Yeah, I bet.
All right, stay tuned. We'll get to more coming up in the top of the 11 o'clock hour. I'm curious to get Ben's expectations for Big 12 Media Day. Are you going to vote?
At Big 12 Media Day?
Yeah, in the preseason poll.
Well, it's already come out.
Oh, has it?
Yeah,
well,
the poll's
that just
out.
means neither one of us did.
We can talk about the poll. You're curious about it.
Let's dive into it coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
The sports you love, the teams you can't live without.
Get a sense of urgency!
This is Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Get the official debit cards of the Utah Jazz, University of Utah Sports, Real Salt Lake, and more exclusively at America First Credit Union. Big 12 Media Day is coming up tomorrow and Wednesday. Ben and I will both be there. We are very much looking forward to giving you full coverage of that. My first Big 12 football media day. I know the station was down there last year. I was at Pac-12, which I've covered many, many years. I'm looking forward to the new experience, and I'm looking forward to going to Allegiant Stadium, which I have yet to go to.
Yeah, that'll be cool. I'm very excited to see that part of it, and we'll see. Hopefully it's a little bit better organized. Last year was a slight nightmare.
Yeah, it was. We'll see. I want to know, Ben, if you're over it yet.
Big 12 Media Day?
No,
I'm over
no.
Vegas.
No, I'm. If you're over Kansas getting so slighted in the preseason media poll.
Well, they got picked in front of Arizona, right?
Fourth.
That's about right for my Jayhawks. Rock Chalk. Let's do it. No, I think that's fine.
thought you would think they should be the runaway number one.
They could be number 2. You know where they're starting on the Big 12 power poll that we're going to start doing every week, I guess, coming up in a couple of months.
Number one. Firmly at 1.
Undefeated
With a new offensive coordinator, right? I bet they run the ball better.
We'll see. See if they play any defense.
So Utah picked number 1, but by a narrow margin over Kansas State. I'm sure you went over this, but is that a surprise? Is it a surprise? Shouldn't Utah, you think, is a great candidate for number 1? They're bringing back their whole team.
Yeah,
that's what this stuff should be about. Now, oftentimes you get caught up in the names, right? And so I was actually glad to see Oklahoma State wasn't just put automatically at number 1. You think the old school Big 12 media would have been a little more snooty. But I think Utah, with what they bring back, probably should be picked number 1, no?
We'll see. Could they figure out their run game and what that's going to look like? But you've got Cam Rising, you've got Brian Keithy, you've got a lot of great players on the defensive side of the ball. You've got the best head coach in the conference. So, yeah, I get it. I get why Utah – I would say Utah was a bit of a default number 1.
Well, yeah, because the conference last year was so flat. It was flat.
Right.
Everybody was okay. And nobody was great.
That's how we look at the poll here of kind of how they graded these teams out. There's like the teams you expect to be good. There's the teams you don't have any real concept of, like, they could go up or they could go down. And then there's like the last 4 teams, and BYU falls in this group of just like, we don't know at all what to expect.
It should have been more than 4.
Okay.
Colorado at 11.
That is the last team on this where you're like, well, at least I know they have a quarterback. That's why they got this ranking. They're like, well, at least I know who starts at one position. And, of course, they've got some 4- and 5-star recruits. They've got some very talented players. But you at least have one answer in Shedeur Sanders, and everybody below them were just like, we have no idea. No idea what they're going to look like.
The whole offensive line. Deion said, I don't want one of you back here.
You're all bad.
You're all just dreadful. Who's to say the new 5 are going to be any good? But I don't know. I don't believe in Colorado. But to your point, I mean, what do you expect out of Baylor? What do you expect out of TCU? Right. I mean, what a roaring disappointment the Horned Frogs were last year, right?
And understandably, lost, starting quarterback and wide receiver. Wide receiver was a first-round pick, and quarterback was like a 4th-round pick. Regardless, yeah, they were going to have a drop-off. Their fluky year getting to the national championship game was exactly that. It was bizarre.
West Virginia was supposed to be the worst team in college football last year. It picked 7th.
Yeah. Well, they were much better. They exceeded expectations.
That was awkward last year. They were obviously bent about that.
Yeah.
Media days are actually pretty prone to some awkwardness.
And this year is going to be no exception.
I'll tell you, Shedeur. I got corrected on that last
What'd
year.
you say? Shedeur.
Well, and then you asked him where his dad was, and he said, chilling at home.
Yeah.
He's not here.
Is Deion going to be there?
They released a list of everyone who's expected to be there. So.
Oh, man, if it really is a free-for-all, like you do have to fist fight somebody to get an interview, what do you think it's going to be around Neon Deion?
Nightmare.
Pandemonium.
He's going to do 4 stops. He'll do, ESPN. He'll do whatever the national outlets that are there.
Fox and ESPN.
Probably not doing any Colorado specific.
I doubt it.
Yeah, maybe L.A.
We have
I guess
a Colorado
there's no L.A. contingent, so no.
We have a sister station in Colorado. I'm sure they're going.
Yeah.
They going to land him?
Probably not.
Probably not.
He's going to show up like it's the combine. He's going to show up in a limousine. He's going to run the 40. He's going to split.
I'm actually excited for the circus. That part of the circus is going to be pretty bananas. Are there any other must-get interviews? I would love to talk to Mike Gundy.
Yeah,
I'd love to talk to that
Gundy's
weirdo.
The obvious one.
I always like Dave Aranda.
I'm guessing Ollie Gordon's not going to be there after getting a DUI last weekend, even though he's the best player in the conference.
Oh, yeah. No.
Probably could not make him super available, if available at all.
I'd probably pick somebody else. Honestly, and I'm not even joking about this, for his sake, you should probably pick somebody else.
Absolutely. Don't make him go.
Because this is a big car wash where you answer the same questions over and over again. Like the same questions 9 million times. And if he has to talk about his DUI 9 million times, I mean, that's just not fair to him.
Yeah, punish him by not letting him go because you can't be getting DUIs, and it shields him from having to answer questions.
Because that's just not, I mean, young people make mistakes. Come on. That's a bad one, granted, but no need to send him down to media day.
Yeah, don't throw him to the wolves.
That would be
right
brutal.
After that. Yep.
That would be absolutely brutal. But yeah, I've got to admit, Ben, I'm looking forward to the experience. I don't have a whole lot of gripe with the media poll. Usually I do, because the Pac-12 media just automatically would say, well, USC is going to be number one. It's like, what are you talking about? USC is going to be number one. They stunk last year. Well, they always have the most talent. How many millions of times do we hear that? Always have the most talent. With this, I think they got it pretty right. Too low for BYU at 13? Are you okay with that? I've told you I'm concerned about the Cougs this year.
Well, look at the teams. The Big 12 sent this out. They tweeted it out. Who the media day attendees are. If you're in the bottom four, basically you're not sending your quarterback to media day. And why are you in the bottom four? Because you don't know who your starting quarterback's going to be. And BYU's not. So that makes sense. How many times did you expect BYU to not send their quarterback? I mean, again, BYU is a quarterback factory. So to not have a quarterback to send is telling.
You know what I'm looking forward to? Not having to peek over the fence at how Cam Rising's walking. Did you see him? He's walking all right.
We're still going to get that report.
Whatever we can all agree that was egregious in hindsight, right? The whole masking of that injury.
Yeah.
Just egregious, can't we? I mean, I get
Absolutely. It was crazy.
I get it that you don't. HIPAA is a thing for a reason, and I like to respect people's privacy, but don't come out and lie to my face.
And say, he's on schedule to play maybe game one.
He was slinging it yesterday. Did you see him playing pickleball over there? My gosh, he's ready to go today. We could all agree that is. Speaking of this, don't take him to media day then.
Yeah, right.
I remember when they waltzed was it Zach Moss? Zach Moss, who had a broken arm, a cast.
Yeah.
They marched him out at practice, and they said before they marched him out there, all right, just a reminder now.
Don't ask about injuries.
Don't ask about injuries.
This man's in a wheelchair.
You mean the guy with the
ambulance
with the cast?
Yeah.
I still bless Dana Green, who was like, hey, what's with the cast? Oh, but I am looking forward to that. Not having to be we asked Cam last year, how's it go? Oh, great. Loving it. Hope to be ready by game one. Do you?
I'm trying to look at this quickly. Arizona State, Cincinnati, Iowa State, not bringing quarterbacks. BYU, Houston, Baylor, not bringing quarterbacks.
Well, Iowa State's picked 6, but mainly that's because they don't need a quarterback.
Yeah. They're trying to score 6 points.
That's it.
Hold you to 4.
That's it. What a boring team. Can we all say that we're not looking forward to games against Iowa
Matt
State?
Campbell, what's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
Wrong
I
with
just
you?
want to know, what's wrong with you?
Why are you doing this?
Why are you, how does Michael Scott put it? Why are you the way that you are?
The way that you are. 6 points. Try to keep it under 200 yards of offense.
Trust me, that's W's. They won the league 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not looking forward to Iowa State games, but I like that they're not dissimilar to Utah in a lot of ways, where you find what works where you are and you lean into that.
Will I get in trouble if I ask Lance Leopold for an autograph since I'm such a big Jayhawks fan?
Yes. Don't do that. Or at least save it for later.
Unbutton my shirt.
I don't know.
Inside my chest.
But PK has managed to keep it under control when he's talking to Arizona State coaches. So I expect you to keep it professional.
Where are you on Arizona? I think they're probably the biggest question mark this year because
they
could legitimately win the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
They
like
could also
Arizona.
take a huge step back from last year and finish 6 and 6.
Yeah, but they're all going to have a chip on their shoulder because they all stayed.
Yeah.
Like Jed Fish, they're going to pull the abandoned coach card and really go out and set the world on fire because they're motivated to do so. And they're bringing everybody back, including a stud quarterback. I would have voted Arizona State higher than 5. Or Arizona, higher than 5. But, I was high on him last year.
Yeah.
And I like Jed Fish. I thought Jed Fish was a great coach. I don't know why he's the one coach who can leave a job and not take his whole team.
Yeah, that's what was so interesting is that basically nobody followed him. Now, they had a couple guys go to the NFL, but players did not necessarily follow him to Washington.
No, they felt abandoned.
Yeah.
And as long as we're talking about honesty, here's the problem with selling, family on 3 is the moment you leave, if you had buy-in from your team, which Arizona had total buy-in, then that doesn't really scream warm feelings. And then all of a sudden, But Arizona, who knows? They're such a poorly run university in general. They could probably submarine anything if they really tried. But I would have picked Arizona higher. And I know Arizona State was last, but I probably would have tried to get them lower.
Okay.
Don't you?
How do you get them out of the league?
How do you relegate them? Have you heard PK talk about how his blood boils every time he sees Herm Edwards or Antonio Pierce on television?
Yeah.
Isn't that a joke, though? That you really can submarine a whole program, get an athletic director fired, get him punished for years to come, and then just be like, yeah, where's the makeup thing? Antonio Pierce backed his way into a head coaching job with the Raiders. Are you kidding?
NFL.
Are you kidding?
Who's the Carl Durrell at this at this year's media day? Do you want to explain who Carl Durrell was? I mean, everyone knows he was the former Colorado head coach.
What do you mean? The guy who's...
He was just like so nice to be like, this is going to be really tough.
The uber-realistic nice guy?
He was so bad at selling his program at Pac-12 Media Day when we were there before Dion got the job. He was like, this is going to be hell for us.
I love Carl Durrell, dude.
He was the sweetest guy.
He was such a good guy.
He was so nice, but he was like, this looks like trouble.
So coaches are so funny. Mike Riley always said the right thing when he was the head coach at Oregon State. Always, always, always. David Shaw was the most thoughtful guy there. Always, always, always. It's kind of interesting to see what plays out. The guy who was the old Arizona State coach that just lied to your face?
Graham?
Todd Graham.
Yeah.
Handed out talking points before he sat down.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the weirdest things ever. He brought talking points. You can ask me about these 3 things.
And that's it. Ask me about what we have at our snack bar, and ask me about what I'm doing to stay in shape personally, and who I'm the head coach of. All right, let's go.
Coach, I guess.
And then Sumlin showed up 1 year in less than ideal condition.
Yeah, could barely find his chair.
I loved it that you could tell if Chip Kelly thought he had a good team or a bad team based on how badly he treated people. Like you knew his team was going to suck when he sat down and was like, guys,
let's talk.
Let's do this thing.
How beautiful. Salt Lake.
Has it been a year already?
One of my favorite towns.
And if he thought he had a good team coming back, it's like, let's get this over with, you morons.
Yeah, he really did. He had that. It was a pretty obvious tell.
White swing.
It was a pretty obvious tell.
Chip, your team must really going to stink this year. You're going to win like 3 games based on how friendly you are currently at the moment.
Yeah, I guess I'm not going to miss that guy.
No.
I guess I won't miss him.
I talked to a Ute fan the other day who's absolutely rooting against the Big Ten teams. You think that's a common thread? I think every Ute fan out there is rooting against the Ducks, the Huskies, the Trojans, and the Bruins.
I'm curious about that dynamic in general because really the big story for the Big 12, unfortunately, is that Oklahoma and Texas are gone. Your bellwether franchises, programs, have left you. It's huge, huge cornerstone college football programs.
I bet they don't even talk about it.
No, they won't talk about it at all. They will talk about these new schools coming in, and I know there's been some vitriol between Utah football fans and the rest of the Big 12 and coming in and expecting to just trounce the Big 12 and everyone saying, like, this is a better program than you think. And they're like, oh, well, we're Pac-12 champions, et cetera. Really, the story is that you lost Texas and Oklahoma. Much bigger than adding Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and Arizona State, with all due respect to those schools.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So that void is not actually getting filled.
No.
And I will be curious, I guess, how some of the Big 12 coaches, the former Big 12 coaches who are still around, talk about it and talk around Texas and Oklahoma.
Oh, your Mark won't let it happen. I mean, that's why you hire a PR guy like your Mark and not what was Larry Scott before he was the Pac-12 commissioner? Oh, the commissioner of the WTA.
Yeah.
Don't hire a politician. Hire a PR guy. Your Mark has handled all this really beautifully, in my opinion, including adding the 4 corner schools, not splitting hairs about it. It's the reason that the league is even still afloat. And if the Pac-12 had a modicum of that, they would still be here.
And not that it's beyond your Mark. He certainly has done it, and I will expect some type of news tomorrow morning. But I hated that about Pac-12 Media Day. It was like, what's the lifeline this year? Yeah. You're going in, like, what's the big announcement that was always a gimmick that was going to close the gap on everyone else in the Pac-12? It was always this lie that was being told about what the production companies were going to do or how they were going to compete, and it never really made sense.
If you want to look at watershed moments, I know that's a big cliche bumping around politics these days, but you want to look at a true watershed moment is when Bowlesby threatened to sue the Mouse for messing with their league. Remember that when the Mouse wanted them all to go to AAC and was just trying to submarine the Big 12, and he threatened to sue them, and then it's all been like good news from the Big 12 from there. It's pretty amazing. They should write a book about it. And Bowlesby, once he settled the ship with it all, turned it on over to Yormark, who negotiated the deal with both Fox and ESPN. And it's the whole reason the Pac-12 was gone, because they never had that stand-up-for-yourself moment. Never.
Yeah.
Right to Kliavkov. Remember his first media day after USC and UCLA had left. Remember the buzz line, Ben? Dodging grenades, isn't that what it was?
Yeah.
Lobbing. People have been lobbing grenades. Well, he never had that moment where he said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do about it. Like, why wasn't the Pac-12 plundering the Big 12 all along? You know, they tried to do that initially 10, 15 years ago or whatever that was. But they never had that. Bowlesby stood up for what was left and salvaged the league, which has enough legitimacy to still keep this thing fun for now.
Well, to this point of they don't need a gimmick tomorrow, but Bob Bowlesby and then Yormark has been extremely, bold. Fortune favors the bold, and they have been. They have gone out and they have laid out a plan, and they have executed that plan really well. And the problem is, if you make a plan and you choose the wrong direction, it can really hurt you. They followed a plan, and it really helped them.
Yeah.
They laid out an idea to go out and poach the teams they wanted to poach from the Big 12 that they thought would stick around after the other teams were going to the Big 10. And they weakened it enough, and they chipped away enough that they got Colorado. And once Colorado came, that really was not the dam breaking, not the watershed moment like you're talking about, but that was there's a very serious crack in the wall.
Oh, that was it. Colorado going, that was it. Because Utah was tied to Colorado, and then Arizona always wanted to do it for their basketball program, and that was it. I remember people pretended, well, it's so funny. Do you remember that was the story? Was Colorado was going that wasn't official right before Media Day, but remember that report dropped?
Yeah.
And then everybody was saying fake news going into Media Day. And how long after Media Day did it take for Colorado to leave the league? Was it like a week later?
It was not long.
Wild times.
Yeah. No,
that was only a year ago.
No,
that feels like a decade ago.
Oh, last year, the big story was BYU is in the Big 12, and now it's everybody's in the Big 12.
Crazy. And you know what? And maybe this is a good way to put a bow on it. I love it. I love it that BYU and Utah are back together in the same league. I think this league has the potential to be extremely interesting because everybody's good at kind of the same level. And so there's going to be a lot of fireworks. That's really what they should be selling at Media Days is, listen, we got a lot of good teams here. This is going to be an absolute dogfight. And while USC, UCLA, and those teams are not winning games in the Big Ten, and Texas is on its way to the bottom of the SEC, we're going to have an extremely interesting product.
What I'm excited for is I loved the Pac-12. I was a huge Pac-12 fan. I liked the schools. I liked the funny dynamics of all the coaches. I thought they were weird. I thought it was goofy. I liked how unpredictable it was. I liked that Arizona State beat Oregon every year inevitably. I liked how insane it was. I really am excited this year. And this applies to BYU, though they were very well run in the capable hands of Tom Holmoe. But I'm excited to see Utah and BYU in a conference with good leadership. Utah has not had that in an extremely long time.
Maybe ever.
And BYU has been independent, so they haven't had leadership outside of their own.
Maybe ever.
So,
yeah. Well, because Craig Thompson wasn't great.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see, you're in a conference that A, wants you, and B, has a direction for where they want to build this thing. I'm excited to see what that looks like.
And who was? Oh, it was Carl Benson, the longtime coach of the WAC, or commissioner of the WAC. He wasn't great either. Poor Carl. He held on until the WAC was basically dead, and he was still coming out. This is the best conference in the West. College sports is ridiculous. It really is. But the Big 12 appears to be good for now. I think the Big 12 is as stable as anything because, honestly, if the Big 10 wanted or the SEC wanted anybody else, they would have taken them.
I agree.
So maybe we can enjoy this conference for 2 years.
That seems to be the number of people are talking about, 2 or 3 years.
Meanwhile, the what the Beavs and the Cougs are floundering, kind of 1 foot in the Mountain West.
Washington State, not BYU.
And then the Bears and the Cardinal are pretending to be in the ACC. Oh, man, it's so much better that they're together in the Big 12.
Coast-to-coast college football.
So much better than the alternative.
Yep, it is.
All right, stay tuned. We'll have more Jake and Ben coming up next. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Whether it's the Jazz, Utes, Cougars, or Aggies, these guys have got you covered.
Time to eat, fellas.
You're locked on to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson
1, 2, 3, move it.
on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Jacob Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Catch 30 Seconds to Mars on the Season World Tour 2024 with special guest AFI as they make a stop at Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater on July 30th. Get your tickets now at livenation.com or listen to The Zone all day on Tuesday, July 23rd for your chance to win. Ben, let me ask you about this. You've, for the last, while I've been gone, have had your pulse on the Jazz fans during a very important stretch from draft to free agency to now into to Summer League. And, you know, popping on social media, immediately you notice the complainers. So can we filter out the complainers for a second and give me an understanding of what the rational Jazz fan expects going into the year, given now all this new information that we've got?
Expects for the year.
Is it still waiting for a big deal? Is it flip Lowry? Is it acquire? Is it lose as many as possible?
Yeah, I guess.
What is now the rational, okay, I understand where the Jazz are as a franchise going into this year.
Rationality would ask you to recognize that the Jazz are trying to maintain as much flexibility as possible.
Yes,
I agree. Until a clearer plan presents itself. And I almost hesitate to use the word plan because that's become a talking point in and of its own with the Utah Jazz, to the point where Danny Ainge criticized everyone's desire to have a plan, including owner Ryan Smith, who's like, he's a tech guy. Tech guys want to have plans. He's like, that's not how basketball works. There's no plan. We want to do everything we can to get better before July, and that was the big talking point that came out last week. You know, this was before July. Well, it's July, and the big trade piece never became available. The Jazz balked at the price for Mikal Bridges, didn't want to do it, and we'll pivot now to be the last man standing or simply maintaining cap space to give Lauri Markkanen a raise and extend him, which I think has been the plan all along. And then see, hey, maybe end of July, maybe August, maybe September, something happens with the team and they freak out and they say, ooh, we actually want to pull the plug on this thing. We want to back out. And the Jazz are the only team that has cap space or flexibility left over. And again, they can be opportunistic. But yes, it's to maintain flexibility, to have the opportunity to create a plan when it presents itself.
Think most people get that?
No.
I don't think most people get that either.
I mean, I would also tell you, and look, I'm a big believer in Colin Sexton. Like, I think Colin's really good. Friday, we ran down some numbers of what he has done over the last 50 games of the season. Is like only the best players in the NBA have done it over the last 5 or 6 years. Like, the numbers he put up were pretty insane. I think he's really good. I know how good Lowry is. He's worth extending and keeping on a max contract here in Utah. And maybe you can get him for a little bit less. I don't know. But you can do those things and still be a bottom 6 team in the NBA next year and try and get one of these guys, because it's not Victor Wembanyama or bust next year. There are expected to be 5, 6, 7 guys who are real franchise pieces. And maybe they're not the best player in the NBA, but they could be the best player on the Jazz within a couple of years and would be better picks than any they've made on face value. We will see how Taylor, Cody Williams, Keontae George, Isaiah Collier develop. Like you hope they significantly outperform their draft position. But ideally next year you end up with a pick in the top 8. It's a much better prospect than anyone you have taken in the last 2 drafts. And you can do that even by keeping Lowry and Collin.
Oh, 100%.
I would also tell you I think you're a lot closer to being good with Collin and Lowry than a lot of Jazz fans recognize.
But they don't want to be good. This is the rub, right?
I think
because you don't want to stay in the middle. That's what everybody. That's what the complainers are complaining about.
I do
right?
understand that. I would also say they really haven't been in the middle, right? You've had a top 10 picks. It's not like you're drafting 15th and 16th and going in the play-in tournament. You are in such a better spot than, say, the Chicago Bulls. Now, are you in a better spot than the San Antonio Spurs? No. They truly bottomed out. They got Victor Wembanyama. They have an obvious direction. Now they've got to prove that they can build around it, but they've got draft picks, and they're in a really good space. Oklahoma City, better space than the Jazz are in. But compared to the Chicago Bullses of the world, some of those teams that are truly in the middle, the Los Angeles Lakers, even the Golden State Warriors right now, some of these teams that are trapped in the middle, some of them for better reasons. They're coming off of 4 titles in 8 years or whatever it was with Golden State. You're in a better spot than that. And you have flexibility to really go wherever you want to.
Right, which is the point.
And you know what's really nice? You have Lauri Markkanen on your team. He's a great basketball player, and doesn't matter what you do for a draft pick, he will fit next to them really well.
He was a throw-in from the Donovan Mitchell deal.
Right.
You found gold amongst the chicken feed.
Yeah, and if you wanted to trade him again,
right.
You could get probably the same price you got for Donovan Mitchell.
Now, you said something that concerned me. You said a little less when talking about negotiating his contract. If they try to nickel and dime Lowry, that would be a mistake.
I don't think they will. I mean, they will try to see if they can save any money, but yeah, I think you just give them what you can.
Money's going to be cheap, too, when all this TV money hits. You'd be foolish to...
Correct.
Super foolish. Now, they weren't foolish to nickel and dime Rudy, and they got Rudy to take a reasonable, at the time, kind of deal, and that's because they didn't have any money. Well, they've got tons of money.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
And that money's going to be even cheaper because you've got another influx coming in the cap space, and it's a no-brainer. I would hope that they're not doing that.
And it's early in this point where you're not thinking the way Oklahoma City already is having to structure the guys they are acquiring, Isaiah Hartenstein. They need his contract to expire at the time Jalen Williams...
That they have to pay them.
That they have to pay those guys.
Yep.
The Jazz are nowhere close to that.
That was the mistake of Mike Conley, where the money was supposed to disappear and go to Rudy and Donovan, but those two couldn't replace Mike Conley.
Correct.
And then they were out of salary cap space.
Yeah.
So you don't want to rely on Hartenstein. Steen? I never knew. Stein?
Hartenstein. Yeah.
That was a loss for your Knicks.
That was a huge player. I like that they added McHale. I'm not sure that McHale was what they were missing. And I get they're loading up on wings to guard the Boston Celtics, but it's good to have Hartenstein too.
Oh, and we didn't even talk about this in our NBA player acquisition segment. Like, is anybody going to be able to beat Minnesota now?
Because they added Joe Ingles?
The missing ingredient.
The corpse of Joe Ingles. The washed-up dead body who's been...
Do you know how many lobs he's thrown to Rudy over his career?
Yeah, I do.
I
watched all of them.
He is the answer.
I've seen every single lob Joe Ingles has ever thrown to Rudy Gobert in his career. He could barely play his last year in Utah. Then he tore his ACL, and then has barely been able to play the last 2 years in Milwaukee and Orlando.
That's remind me, who's Joe's agent? It's the same Bartelstein. Guy's a magician.
Yeah.
A magician. How do you get Joe Ingles a deal?
Minimum.
Minimum nothing.
Yeah. He's still in the NBA.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Missing ingredient though. Next stop, Titletown. Here come the T-Wolves.
You were one player away, and that player was Joe Ingles.
Joe Ingles! The guy all along. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So, no, I think the NBA is going to be interesting. I do think a lot of Jazz fans yesterday breathed a sigh of release that Miles Bridges is not signed to Utah. He's staying in Charlotte. Remember, he has the very ugly domestic assault issues off the court. This is one thing I would remind Jazz fans. And look, if you want to voice your displeasure of saying, hey, I won't root for this team if they sign this player, I do think a lot of fans work themselves into like a stressful situation to hate their basketball team for hypothetically signing a player that it never got close. Like, I did see
Is there a lot of that out
I
there?
saw a lot of fans on Twitter really work themselves up, like tagging Ryan Smith in tweets like, I'm going to denounce my Jazz fandom if they sign this player. It was like, well, they didn't. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and I think that did overtake a lot of people. I think there was a real fear with this team and the way the fans have a relationship with it. They're going to, like, do something insane. And it is funny to me because it will go as crazy as, like, wow, Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge just had one of the best drafts in Jazz history, at least on face value, getting Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski. A-plus job on a Friday or Thursday to Monday, the Jazz don't have a big splash in free agency. It's like these guys are idiots.
Where is the lack of faith coming from? Who's the lack of faith in?
I think a lot of it is Danny.
You mean the guy who's done it before for a zillion years?
And probably Ryan Smith because he is different in how he did it than the Millers.
Agreed. But I honestly think that what he does best is support, and I truly believe that's his role. Now, let me explain a little bit. Like, he knows that he hired the GM that he can't tell what to do. So all he really can do is support that GM in a variety of extraordinarily important ways. You know, hire the right people, the Jim Olsen on down, the right structure, and do all those things to support and make sure that he has all the opportunity he needs to do what he does. Ryan didn't hire somebody he could push around. So if people have lack of faith in Ryan, and I guess I would get that because he hasn't done it before, I get back to right who he hired. Like, he would have hired, and by the way, Justin Zanuck, who's a member of the previous regime, who he kept on because he liked ways that Justin did things. Like, I don't understand where the lack of faith comes from, I guess. That's the reason I put it so simply. Because I don't know how you would have lack of faith in Danny Ainge. Unless you're a Ute fan who can't get over the Ute BYU thing, which is dumb.
I will also say one of the interesting things about what you're talking about with Danny is it is so counter to the way Ryan Smith does everything else. Like, Ryan Smith's a bulldozer. He just kind of comes in and he says, we're going to do this, and it follows, right? Like, he said we're going to get a hockey team. What happened? He got a hockey team within like a year and a half. He brought in that angel investor or whatever you want to call it, that other investment group, and to bring a professional sports...
Not angel investor. That's a different thing.
That's a different thing. So he brought in, another owner or part owner and said, we're going to position ourselves to get another team. And within like 18 months, he had it. And then he said, we're going to rebuild the Delta Center and we're going to buy basically 3 city blocks downtown and make it a place where Jazz players actually want to hang out when they live in Utah. And within like 5 weeks, the plans are laid out.
Yeah.
And I know it wasn't that simple, but like, it's not simple. That's the thing. He does a lot of really difficult things quickly. He gets things done. Whether you like him or not, he gets the things he wants done. So to hire somebody in Danny Ainge who he can't bulldoze probably is actually a really bright green flag.
Yeah, that he knows.
Because
I agree.
When you're the owner, you can Matt Ishbia this thing and say, James Jones, I don't care what you've built. We're getting Kevin Durant tomorrow.
And I got Isaiah Thomas in the wings.
And I've got Zeke.
I got Zeke in my ear.
Whispering
I don't need you.
how smart I am.
He did that with Bill Armstrong, I would argue.
Yeah.
With the hockey team. Like, yeah, the guy who's been doing a good job with zero resources, slogging it out in Phoenix, he probably knows what he's doing.
Right. And actually showed a lot of resistance. This is something we didn't get to talk about a lot. But what did they not do? They didn't go and spend $30 million in cap space on the NHL team right away.
Just because they could.
Just because they could to make a splash. No, Bill said, hey, we're building something here. And we should include Chris Armstrong into this conversation as well. But, yeah, we're building something. And we believe in what we're building, and we're going to do it the right way. I actually think that's... Now, look, you've got to pay it off. I'm not at a point where I'm judging the job Danny Ainge, Ryan Smith, and Justin Zanuck have done since Danny Ainge got the job officially, like fully in 2022 and traded away all the players. Like, that's drastic. It's a major step backwards. He's betting on himself to be able to rebuild it. He hasn't taken the steps to rebuild it yet other than making some draft picks. Because I'm not a fan, and I get if you're a fan and you're buying jerseys and you're investing in season tickets or buying TV, whatever, to watch it, I get it. I get why you would be frustrated with it. I'm not trying to say you're wrong there. But I have the luxury as somebody who just covers the team to step back and I think take a 30,000-foot view and realize, well, it's way too early to judge these guys on the job that they've done. But I do recognize what they're doing, and it's maintaining flexibility. To go back to the beginning of how do you stay rational about this team, it's they haven't committed themselves to anything wrong other than trading away good players. But is that a commitment to doing something wrong? I would argue it's probably not yet at this point.
Honestly, you know who Ryan didn't hire? Isaiah Thomas. You know what Isaiah Thomas does all the time? Honestly, the way he's existed in basketball for so long, the reason he's still the Rasputin for Ishbia is because he's just a bootlicker who will do whatever. That's what he did in New York.
Yeah.
He'd go on the whims of the owner and go trade everything he had for Stephon Marbury. You know, because the owner got impatient or whatever. That's not Danny Ainge.
Oh, I bet you a lot of guys have gotten jobs historically saying, I want you to help me make decisions, talking to the owner.
Right.
I want you at the table.
You're basically the GM. I'm just here.
Yeah,
right.
I want you in the war room on draft night.
He didn't hire
telling
that.
You what you think.
He didn't hire that.
Yeah, he didn't. It's not how Danny operates.
No.
It's not how Justin operates.
Like Frank Layden, maybe one of the most brilliant things he ever did was when he stepped back from being the head coach, he didn't hire a head coach he could tell what to do all the time.
Yeah.
He hired Jerry Sloan.
And let Jerry do the job.
Yeah. I mean, it's brilliant in its lack of arrogance.
Yes. So again,
I think that's a good sign. Who do people have lack of faith in? Just chill.
If in 4 years none of these players that they've drafted with their 6 top 32 picks over the last 2 years are on the team, and Lowry's not here, and Collins not here, and they don't have a star of the franchise, I think it's absolutely fine to hammer them. We went back. We can hammer Ty Corbin now. We can say what a bad job he did and some of the mistakes they made. We have a better perspective on the mistakes that Quinn Snyder couldn't make. I think giving people time to make those mistakes before you judge them is responsible, but I understand that's the job for an analyst or somebody who covers the team, not necessarily a fan.
Wrap it up the show. Coming up next, Jake and Ben, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who's got it better than us?
Your home for the best sports coverage in Utah. You're listening to Jake Scott and Ben Anderson on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Two niggas on the airways, talking sports. They got him Matrix and also loves his tie guy. Ben's got style with his stars. Oh my.
Oh man, I've missed this song.
I bet. I'm surprised you weren't listening to this on the beach.
I've missed
this is a beach song.
It does have a beach groove to it, doesn't it?
A little bit of news, quickly.
All right.
We're going to Allegiant Stadium tomorrow for Big 12 Media Day. Utah, though they're going to be there tomorrow, is heading back to Allegiant Stadium 2027 to take on the Miami Hurricanes.
Oh, nice. That's a good matchup.
Yeah, a neutral site game, which very much favors Utah in Las Vegas.
Schedule non-conference games with brands that are good, but their teams stink.
Yeah, it's
you
great.
know what I mean?
Right.
Like Miami was good once. Everybody's going to be like, oh, the Canes and the Utes, and then you stomp them because they stink.
Who else fits that narrative?
Now?
Like Miami is the best version of it. Absolutely, no question.
They might be the best version of it. Florida is kind of that.
Yeah, Florida's a little bit that.
Maybe Tennessee, although Tennessee's been good lately.
Utah got Baylor at a good time.
Florida State's kind of that.
Florida State's a little bit that, but they were better last year. Utah scored with Baylor. Because everyone was like, why would you ever schedule Baylor? Baylor's good. It's like, no, they're awful.
Everybody pretends UCLA might be good.
Yeah, UCLA is one of those teams. USC Sneaky has been one of those teams. You haven't scheduled them. You have to play them.
UCLA hasn't been good since Troy Aikman, but everybody still thinks like, oh, it's the Bruins.
Brett Hundley.
But Miami might be the ultimate example of that.
Yeah, they are.
You schedule a big brand that's likely going to stink.
I think coach doesn't know how to use timeouts late in games or how to take a knee.
Oh,
the famous victory formation. He didn't ran the ball.
That stuff from head coaches I do think is unforgivable.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because very few things in game actually come down to the head coach. The head coach farms all that stuff out to staff. Most head coaches. All that, substitutions, game plans, play calling, you name it, somebody else is doing it, except for calling timeouts and clock management.
Victory formation, or we're punting with 4 seconds left and they've got to go 99 yards. Okay. And just say, no, we're running the ball.
Like, there's not really an excuse. That's why the analytics sheet for going for it on fourth down drives me so bananas. It's like you have one thing to do and you're going to farm that out to some numbers thing. No, field the game and make the call.
Yeah, make the call.
But the point of that is so that in the press conference when it goes wrong, you're like, what did you want me to do?
Guys,
come on.
I'm not doing the interview. I'm going to let the stat sheet tell you what happened.
You know what? The same professor that said the Pac-12 was worth $1 billion came up with this for me. So what, I'm not going to doubt it, obviously.
The death of the Pac-12. One of the sad things about going to Big 12 Media Day, which I'm excited to go tomorrow, but Pac-12 Media Day death is a sad one. And it disappeared so fast. The Pac-12 existed last year, and then it didn't.
All right, stay tuned. Coming up next, Hans and Scotty G, 97.5.
Thanks, Christian.
The KSL Sports Zone.